My name is Andrea. I'm the Fitness and Wellness Director at Creighton Farms, and I'm joined by Jackie. And we are so excited to start our Goals, Growth, and Gratitude program, which is a 4-week program. And this is going to be session 1, in which we're talking about goal setting. And we're really excited to launch this program. And Jackie and I are going to be taking turns kind of starting discussions. And we're looking forward to people who aren't able to join live today, being able to join on and listen to our recorded program at their leisure. So with no further ado, let's get started. Today, like I said, is about goals. And it doesn't matter what goal it is. It can be anywhere from a health-related goal to really anything. But basically, the best way to optimize success with any goal, whether it be small or large, is to really think about the why behind why you are choosing that goal. If you don't have that, if you really don't have a sense of why you're doing it, you don't really have a roadmap for succeeding in that goal, because you don't really have a reason or a real belief or understanding about what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the first thing that we want you to really take some time to identify what goal you're trying to set, and really understanding, is it true to your purpose and your set of beliefs and core values about why that goal is important to you. And behind that is really understanding whether it's an intrinsic versus an extrinsic goal. And I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about the difference. And an intrinsic goal is one in which you're kind of internally motivated, or it's one that's where you have a sense of it's internally important to your set of beliefs, cores. Like, for instance, let's say it's important to me to lose 10 pounds. Is it because you want to feel better? Is it because you want to get your cholesterol levels down? Is it because you've been told that you're kind of in that obese section of your weight? Or is it because, so if those are reasons, and that's more of an intrinsic value because you're trying to improve your sense of well-being. If you're extrinsically motivated to do that, it's because it's an external motivation in terms of whether let's say you want to lose that same 10 pounds. Is it because you want others to applaud you, or you want others to say, wow, you look really good? Or not to say that one's better or worse than the other, but one's usually, if it's intrinsic, it's usually more apt to, you're going to be more excited about the process and buy into the process and find more fulfillment from the process of kind of reaching toward your goals. Whereas an extrinsic one is where you're more excited by the outcome. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if so just yes. Really be taking more of an observer hat and really think about when you're trying to fix that goal, achieve that goal, whether or not you're kind of thinking in that kind of mindset. Just get your mind kind of thinking and observing about why you're choosing the goals that you are. That's the first thing. And then make sure when you're picking a goal, write it down. There's so much research to show that you're going to be much more apt to pursue that goal and really effectively achieve it if you write it down. So you have that clear path. I'm going to be kind of turning this over to Jackie for a few minutes to kind of dive in, and then I'm going to come back and talk about a little bit more about the process of really thinking about those goals. But I'll let Jackie have a turn.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think to follow up with Andrea and creating those goals. So you guys joined this group. Okay. So we've got these 4 weeks, different topics. We really want to start you off with that goal setting because it's number one to what you're going to get out of this program, right? So you're joining to see where you might wind up in 4 weeks with these new practices, and whatever we're kind of giving you information on is to apply to your lifestyle to help reach those goals. So I think what Andrea is really getting to is really figuring out your why behind your goals, right? So the intrinsic one is very is a little more heartfelt, where it's going to be for you and your well-being. So if you're thinking about making goals that do go along with your fitness and dropping pounds and such, it is a good idea to really think about why you want to do that, and then really have an internal motivation for that. Because if you don't, and we don't have a big enough why, then we start to fade a little after that motivation goes. And we'll talk more about motivation in week number 2. So we'll go into more detail with that. But today we really want you to get out of this session leaving here feeling like you've set a really good goal, you've written it down, and you kind of know where to start with your goal making so that it's what we'll go into realistic, and it's a goal that you can actually achieve in this amount of time. So Andrea, do you want to pick back up on that, maybe on some SMART goal setting?
Yeah, and I think some, at least when I've been trying to work on goal setting for myself, I think there's I was doing some research, and really some key questions kind of jumped out at me, and I thought these would be helpful for some of you. And I've done this myself, which is, are you really in the right mindset and then in the right place in your life to really be pursuing the goal that you've been put in place for yourself? So like, for instance, I used to be a big runner, but if I set out, and so I used to have a goal that would be to run a marathon. So that goal was able to do, but if I set that same goal for myself now, that wouldn't be, 10 years later in my life with a little more wear and tear on my knees and stuff. That same goal isn't going to be one that I'm really going to probably be invested in achieving. So something, I'm going to kind of shift that to something that would be more applicable to where I am in my stage of my life. So I think that's the first question to ask yourself. The second question is, why is that goal important to you? Sometimes you just pick an arbitrary, I'm going back to a little bit more of the kind of just pulling these out, just more of the weight related ones, just because they're kind of easy to come to mind. But let's say, why is it important to me if I just pick a number on a scale? Why is that particular number important? Did I just pick an arbitrary number? Is that really where I should be at? So really think about, is that going to be a helpful goal to myself? Maybe I'm picking goals that are actually not really promoting my sense of well-being, and they might be setting myself up for a negative outcome. So really think about really understanding yourself and understanding why you're selecting the goals you are selecting. And again, back to that intrinsic versus extrinsic. The intrinsic is, the overriding theme is promoting happiness and a sense of well-being. And that should be the overarching thing. And, nature of most of these goals, hopefully, are ones that are really going to promote that sense of improvement in your sense of self. And then another question that I think is important is, what does completion of that goal look like? Will you really know when you've achieved it? Is it going to be an ever-moving goal setting that's you're not really going to ever understand if you've really accomplished it? And then you're going to kind of miss out on that sense of accomplishment and well-being if you didn't really even know that you accomplished it. So those are kind of questions to, even before you've identified specifically what goal and we're going to talk about that in a little while, just asking yourself those questions. Getting that observer and really understanding yourself. That's going to be the best way to be successful in this journey.
Andrea, can I chime in on that too, just quickly?
Absolutely.
Because I know we've got Carol here, and I kind of think she's a perfect example of some of the things you're talking about, where I've kind of worked with her a little bit and setting goals, right? So when we're in the gym, and I know Andrea trains as well as trainers, I see a lot of people setting those goals, and maybe you guys can raise your hand if you've ever been there, where, for example, a guy is wanting to train, whereas he's looking at himself as he used to train way back in college football, right?
Oh,
but
great example.
He's not in college football anymore, right? So, but mentally, you think of when you used to train that hard for something like Andrea said for running, but that's not her goal anymore. So I think if you've had those experiences, I have as well. I was training like an athlete when really my goal was just to be functional and be moving well and not get injured. So I think that if you just really pay attention and think, where you are today and what those goals are lining up, how those goals are lining up for your lifestyle. That's really important. And I mentioned Carol because, you know, she had started getting in a really good workout routine through this year. And I remember one of her goals was really just to feel better, feel good, have her body feel energized and good and mobile. So again, in line with your movement and then in line with your nutrition, if that's a focus for you, or a mind, you know, some extra mindset work to be in that good headspace. So whatever it is for you, again, make sure it lines up, because that was a really, really good point that Andrea just brought out for that.
And I know that that was great, Jackie. Thank you. I want to make sure that we're not just, well, we're kind of providing some information. We want you guys all to feel free to just speak up as well and ask questions, but we'll just do a little bit more kind of presentation, and then we'd love you guys, but if there's anything that kind of pops to mind before that, please feel free to jump in. That was great, because I know that I've had more than one person, especially guys, I don't want to generalize, but you know, I think sometimes it's hard for them to let go and to change what kind of training they're doing, and they're infamous for, you know, they'll get hurt because they want to lift that same amount of weight or be the power lifter that they were 30 years ago. And then you're like, no, this is, you know, really trying to open their mind to a new way of doing things is definitely a challenge. I'm going to kind of jump forward and kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what we think and what research says is the best way to optimize actual implementation of goals and to optimize success. And that's that SMART is an acronym, but SMART goal seeking. And that's basically is SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes kind of going through each of those. And the first one obviously is specific, and that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's very important to be able to really break down and to identify in very few words as possible what your goal is. Is it, you know, again, back to that weight thing, let's maybe pick something else. Let's just pick something about reading. Let's say I want to try to my goal is to improve my sense of understanding what different authors have to say about about self-growth. And so I'm going to make a goal that I'm going to read 10 pages 5 days a week, so that I can towards something that promotes self-improvement in myself. So that would be identifiable. I'm picking 10 pages. I'm doing it 5 times a week. And that's going to be my goal. So measurable, you want to find a way to quantify your progress or adherence to that goal. So whether it be a little notebook that I check off each night, or if that would be an example of that. Achievable, that is something that I have I'm again back to that mindset. I'm in that mindset that I want to improve my sense of growth and understanding about myself. So if I'm not really in that mindset, then I'm probably not going to be real motivated, that we'll get to in week 2, to read those 10 pages. But if I'm in that mindset that I really want to do this, and I'm going to, and I've got the books, let's say I've gone to the library, I've checked those books out, or I've got them ready to go, then that's going to be set me up for more successful. That's achievable. Relevant. Again, that goal in line with where I'm at and what my purpose is and what my vision for my life. Yes. So I'm going to be, and again, time bound. And there should be a defined timeline for your goal achievement. So you want to be able to say, like, I want to get to 1,000 pages in X amount of time, then breaking that up into 10 pages a day, I should be, by the end of that, have my time frame. So you don't want to just have this open-ended, yeah, I'm going to get to it. You're not going to be successful, most likely. So those are the things that if you can really use that SMART acronym and really try to break it down. That's really effective. When I was training actually to be a personal trainer, that's the number one thing in terms of the personal training realm, that you want to have specific goals. And I always ask someone before they start training, what is their goal? And try to identify and kind of hone in on what their specific goal is, so that they know that so that I'm working as a partner with that person, if it's that individual, to really understand what their goal is, so that they're feeling like they're being successful in the journey as well. So That's kind of all I have on that. Jackie, do you want to weigh in on anything?
Yeah, so I mean, great examples like just of you guys being here now. Everything we just went over with, you know, being specific and then measurable. An example for, I would say, measuring progress would be if you're going to be honing in a little more on nutrition. A lot of times we'll talk about like nutrition tracking, right? So that'll be something that I know my people that want to get into a little more food and dialing that in, you want to have a way of measuring it. Same with working out is why people kind of write down their notes of what weights they're using or what classes they're going to, what exercises they're repeating, so that you have a starting point and you know where your progress is. It's like when you started with 1 push-up and then by the end of 4 weeks, you're doing 10 push-ups on your own. That's a progress report that you just made, knowing that you started at 1 and now you can do 10. So we want you guys to be thinking about that. And I know some of you are taking notes now, which is super great, because I want you to look back at some of these things that Andrea just said about those goals as you're setting them. And I want you to remember that you don't have to just set one goal right now through this 4 weeks. Maybe you have like a top 3. Try not to set 20 of them, because that'll just make your brain crazy. But while we're here now or after this session, you can sit down and you can just maybe itemize 3 top goals that you want to work on in your wellness for these 4 weeks. And we'll be touching upon different topics, but all of those goals will really relate to those different topics, no matter what the goal is, because we're working on full wellness right now. So I think for you guys, and we will open up discussion, you can share as much as you want in here. You don't have to say anything in here, but we will, you know, give an opportunity for you guys to talk about some of those goals with us if you want to here, and start thinking about them so that you can really have some progress through this session. And when you're coaching one-on-one with Andrea as well, that you can give that feedback, that measurement, and you're making progress in a short amount of time because you set something that was realistic, right? So yeah, I think that's good for smart goal setting. And then I think another thing, and I'm going to come at you guys as a coach here, life coaching aspect, is that remember that even though we're setting specific goals, don't be afraid to dream big, think of that big picture too. Where do I really see myself? Because you're capable of so many things, you know, and I think a lot of times we don't set a scary enough goal because we want to stay in our comfort zone. So remember, even though we're staying realistic, you still want to have an idea of like, you know what, I can do that. Even though it seems like it's scary, you might just not be able to do it in the 4 weeks, but you still have that bigger goal. So we've got our SMART goals, but we still have a huge, big reach goal, right? That we want to get to at some point.
Hello?
And this is how we can do that.
Hello?
And also, was I interrupting someone? Was someone trying to say something?
No.
Okay. Another thing is, kind of jumping on what Jackie just said, is this can be, for instance, let's say this is your first 4-week goal. We're hoping that this is going to be kind of the precursor to the next 4-week goal. So this is going to be a building block. So we would love to kind of see what you can do in a year. So let's use it, breaking this into monthly 4 to 6 week groups, so that are goal setting, so that hopefully they'll build upon each other. So yeah, what might look scary now, you might have it just in the back of your head and say, okay, breaking it into little sections is going to really, I think you're going to be amazed. I mean, and I'm going to be writing my goals out too, because I'm in this as well. I'm hoping to have some goals that are kind of a little bit fuzzy right now, but I'm going to start breaking them down, and I'm going to hopefully build upon them so that I can, be as successful as possible. Things that might seem scary now, but I'll be amazed in a year. So it'd be kind of cool to keep a journal too, which I think is always helpful to kind of see where you can kind of free flow what your higher level goals are, and then try to identify them now and then break them in and then kind of go that way. I don't know if that made any sense, but
yeah, it did.
I also have a few tips that I just kind of jotted down. We're just kind of miscellaneous, but they seem to help. They're very helpful to me. So I thought I might pass these along as well. And always be positive with your goal setting. So with the tone of your goal. So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, they try to reframe that in a more positive way so that you're not setting yourself off in a negative, because your brain will really understand and hear what you're saying and the tone of voice you're using and the framing in which you're making your goals. So I want to make sure that we're really emphasizing that this should be a positive process, that we're really, again, getting back to that goal of a higher sense of well-being, an improved sense of well-being, and a greater sense of happiness is really what we're hoping that this is, going for. So just trying to keep everything in a positive tone, which has always been something that I struggle with. I want to, of myself, I'm always very positive of other people, but I can kind of have a tendency to beat myself up. So one of my goals is to be a more positive person to myself. So that's actually, I'm sharing what one of my goals is. Focus on that process, not the outcome. Try to find the intrinsic value behind why you're picking that goal so that you're going to focus and enjoy the process and enjoy, let's say you're trying to get more sleep, more, beneficial sleep. Just focus on what you're doing and how you're feeling when you're getting more sleep. Just kind of be an observer of your body and your mind. Say, am I being more patient with people? That's probably a result of getting more sleep. So just try to focus on the process and enjoy that. Make a contract with yourself or with someone that you trust who's not going to be judging you, but make a contract with yourself that you're really going to promise that you're going to try to really focus on the plan and focus on the goal and try not to deviate from it too much, and really make a contract with yourself, whether it's a positive reward at the end of it or something that you feel like you will, and we can talk about this more in our private coaching. Visualize what you want. Visualize the end, the end game of what your goal is, and seek support again from who's going to hold you accountable, yourself or someone else. But try to do that in a find someone who's not going to judge you, but it's going to be supportive, but yet try to hold you accountable as well. Reward yourself along the way. Again, I guess if you are trying to lose 10 pounds, don't reward yourself with, ice cream, but try to think of something that might bring yourself pleasure, and try to, install those and write those down. Write down a few of what rewards look like to you so that you kind of put them into your process along the way. And then consistently review and reassess your goals along the way. So if you have a month-long goal, every week, a couple times a week, just take a few moments to, you don't want to get so stuck in evaluating your progress that you're not actually implementing and going into action, but you do want to take the time to check and see if you are actually, implementing those goals. Are you doing your checkpoints? Are you heading in the right direction? This is a journey. It's that whole phrase about it's a marathon, not a sprint. But every marathon I've ever run, you have those little drinking stops along the way, and you want to make sure you're heading in that direction. So those are things that I think that really spoke to me when I was writing, preparing for this coaching session. Jackie, that's actually all I have. So Jackie, I'll let you speak.
I loved everything you just kind of hit on, all of those areas, right? Because it's so relative, again, no matter what your goals. But I loved focusing on, I'm a huge believer of this, focusing on the process and not the outcome when you are going through this, because guys, life is short, right? You only get one. So we're here. So think about this process is going to be uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, especially if you're setting a new goal that you have never reached before. Maybe there's a reason you haven't reached it, because it's going to be hard, right? That's how change is. However, it shouldn't be so unenjoyable that you are just miserable. Like Andrew is saying, being positive about it. I mean, the most conversations we have every single day are with ourselves. We talk to ourselves more than anybody, right? And if you're feeding your brain this negative self-talk constantly, think about that. You're just putting yourself down every day. And I hear it with a lot of women, just sometimes with weight and, body or image. And it's unfortunate because, you know, you keep telling yourself, I feel fat or I have this, and you just say that every single day. There's no way you're going to walk out of the house and feel great about yourself. So, you know, your truth is what you believe. So you have ownership of that. You can be who you want to be, and you can go about life the way you want to. So remember that as you go. And, you know, talking about accountability, just to hit on that, you guys, this is why we're running this program. This is why Andrew is taking that time to one-on-one coach, is leaning into other people that can help you. Just being here, showing up for this, that's, you know, that we're coaches, we're leading you through, and we're hoping that you're going to be here to show up and just lean on us for that extra support, because we want to see you show up. We want to see you succeed, and we want to hold you accountable to that. Not in a mean way, but we want to be here to be like, hey, where are you this week? Let's stay with it, because next week we'll talk about motivation, but just to give you a sneak peek about that is that day one, you're energized, you're ready to go. It's like day one on New Year's, right? Whenever it's like, yeah, I'm ready. That's motivation. That's pure motivation until it starts to get a little hard on week 2, and that motivation starts to go down. So what are you left with? You're left with your goals that you set, like today, your big why, you set your goals, and you're left with accountability, someone to be here to say, hey, are you still showing up? So again, that's why we want to be here for you through these 4 weeks, so that you have some people to lean on when it does get a little hard.
And absolutely. And I'm happy, you know, I've got a few coaching sessions lined up this week, and I'm going to be taking notes on each of those. And if anybody who's listening in on this recording wants to do that, I've made time available, and I'll make time available for anyone who signs up for this to take that time for me to help them. Or a lot of times it's just the person actually trying to set the goals, verbalizing it, and then really verbalizing, and then I will write them down, and we'll kind of powwow together and kind of identify what's is this really in that person's again, talk about the mindset and self-interest and all that, to make sure that the goals that are in line with what are really best for each of us. So I think that's the part I'm super excited about to doing, because I think that's, you know, hopefully the accountability each week. If we can, you know, you've heard the whole thing about habits often take about 3 weeks, about 21 to 23 days. So hopefully if we can get you guys through that first month, then some of these you're going to be that building block for the next thing. So hopefully if we can just kind of work together to get these goals kind of hashed out, figured out, and then put in place in that first couple of weeks, you know, I'm really super excited and super optimistic that we'll achieve these goals.
Yeah. And I think, Andrew, I think we only have a couple minutes here, but I would love to, or I mean, we can go on, but I'd love to open it up to you guys. If any of you are wanting to share some thoughts on your goals, or just kind of give your name, why you joined our group, just so we can kind of have a little intro for some people and why you're here, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
As much or as little as you want to share, as much as you want to share, you know, if anybody wants to unmute and go for it, let's hear about you guys. Everyone's like, nope.
Well, I'll start. I did one of these with Jackie in January, and you know, for me at the time, I had a total hip replacement and some medical issues as a result of that before and after, and I wanted to try to improve my mobility and to start feeling better. And so there was parts of the program that were nutrition and all this other stuff. And I just said to her, I can't do all of that right now. What I really want to do right now is just focus on being able to move better and to recover and to get off of some of these medications that I'm, you know, I'm on right now. So I started doing, and for me, the game changer, I had never done strength training. I'd never done Tabata. I'd never done balance. I was the worst one. It was Zoom classes, and I was by far the worst person because a lot of other people in there had been doing this for quite a while. And so I was at first I was a little embarrassed by how hard it was and how bad it was, but Jackie was extremely supportive. And for me, those were game changers because they they absolutely changed how I move, my strength. And, you know, I was able to really, I never got hurt, which is another thing that I think happens to a lot of people when you start doing these things. But the way they do the programs, I never got hurt. And I never felt like if I had to stop or I couldn't do something, then it was going to make fun of me. And so, you know, I can fast forward till now, but that's why I'm doing this again, is because I've made tremendous progress over the past year. And I now want to add some of the other things in that I couldn't do then, because the things that I started with then are already kind of part of my muscle memory in my day-to-day life. And I would say, I don't know Avanti and Debbie and Tosli that well, but for me, part of what was really helpful was the other women and a couple of guys in the classes. Everyone was really supportive. You know, everybody had something that their knee hurt, their foot hurt, their whatever. You know, they weren't like incredible athletes who were making fun of me or anything like, or each other. They were just great people. And I found that really helpful and very inspiring. So I hope, you know, our little group, if I can help anybody, or, you know, just if I can be helpful to you, or if I'm sure you'll be helpful to me, because I found that a big part of why this worked for me.
That's so great. Oh, Carol, you just
Very
like
well
made me smile ear to ear for that. But again, it is. I remember being in class with in class with Carol, and we were doing a balance move, and she's just like, I am so bad at this. And I'm like, that's okay. Like you'll get there. But what Andrea said about that sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint, is that Carol's a year later doing these things and feeling confident in them, where it takes time. So as you guys start right now, that's huge. Like there's going to be uncomfort and you're going to feel that, but don't be embarrassed. Even though you might feel a little embarrassed, that's fine. But
I still can't do push-ups without being on my knees. And that's going to be one of my goals. I'm going to try to do a push-up on my
That was my next question, Carol. So do you have any goals you want to share? Just
I do.
Program, just one quick goal.
Really quick goal. One is to do some push-ups on my feet, not from my knees.
Okay, great.
I want to be able to do squats the right way. I still have trouble going deep down and backwards. It's not a natural thing for me, and I'm learning how to sort of sit on the sofa, what you guys call. That's a goal that I want to do.
Good.
And you know, for me, I just need to maintain where I don't need to my weight, my exercise program, my medications. I just need to maintain that. But I do want to add the two things there. Nutrition. I try to do a Mediterranean diet. I could use cutting back on sugar and cutting back on on wine. I don't need to have it every night. Wine every night, but I don't need to have it every night. And add mindfulness. I did some of that with Jackie's program, but I have fallen off the wagon on doing mindfulness exercises. So those would be two things I'd like to add, and then to those exercise things. So those would be, you know, the goals that I would have.
That's great, Carol. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here. Does anybody else want to share anything? Rosalie or Debbie?
Sure.
Well,
I'm happy to share something. So first of all, hi everybody. Jackie, great to see you. Andrea,
Good to see you.
I hope you remember me. We met when I was at Creighton last
I
April.
do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So really nice to see you and Jackie together.
I'm looking at your well-defined shoulders there, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I
They
appreciate
look very
it.
good.
Thanks. So I'm kind of hoping that, I'm happy to share. One of them's more personal than the other, but like, I don't care. I'm hoping you guys will translate it into something more, more specific, and maybe it all relates to each other. But, and I'm assuming that's part of what we'll do, is just like refine and kind of make the goal, like you said, more attainable, because they may some of them relate to each other. But so the first one is just COVID related, just like staying motivated, because Jackie knows, I used to always go in person, and I'm still not really comfortable exercising in person. So now I've gone back to doing classes on Zoom. Currently, I don't think we have anything at Willow Bend. So I'm actually using, we have a Peloton in our Needham house, and I know there's, one here in the gym. So I have the Peloton app. So I've been like using that, but it's not always consistent. Some days I don't do as much. It's just like, so staying motivated, which I guess you're going to talk about next week. I'm always needing help with the sleep. So, that's another thing. And also thank you about my shoulders. I've actually been really good. I mean, I feel fortunate. I mean, I don't have a weight issue and I'm pretty fit, but always wanting to stay that way. And fortunately, like my last physical, I had a very good report. I still, thank goodness, I'm still only osteopenia and not osteoporosis, but I'm very conscious of like keeping my muscles, you know, in good shape. So I would like to work on a little bit more weight training. So I know that's pretty identifiable. Okay, the last one, maybe you're going to send me to a shrink for this one, but hopefully not. Okay, so I don't really have a weight issue, but in my head, I do. And I do not have an eating disorder. I love to eat, although my family thinks I have one because I have to get on the scale every day. And so as a result, like my weight never really fluctuates more than 3 pounds, but if I gain 3 pounds, I go berserk, okay, which is probably crazy. My daughter-in-law, who's a physical therapist, and I saw last week, said to me, "You're crazy." She said, "That can happen just if you haven't moved your bowels," whatever. So maybe I need more information, but a goal I would like to have is to be able to not get on the scale every day and just to be able to enjoy eating more without having to think about it, whatever. So maybe that can relate to some other things, but that's just my other thing.
Maybe
so
take some
like,
time and we can, I'd love to hear it maybe next week, or if you want to shoot me an email before that. One, why did you start getting on the scale? Like, why is that important? Like, why do you feel this need to get on the scale all the time? And maybe like observe kind of where that started from.
okay.
And what would it look like if you didn't?
Right. Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm intrigued by that. I know someone that believes in not doing it. So I don't know. So we can talk further, but it's just something. And as I say, I mean, I'm a big cook. I've got something on the stove right now. I eat. It's not like I don't. I've got a great salad for lunch. I'm all about nutrition, but I just want to enjoy it more without always thinking about what's going to happen when I get up tomorrow morning, you know, like
Right.
I had something last night and I never understand why it goes up and down. And maybe I don't need to think about it as much. I just don't want to be thinking about it as much.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say like what Andrea just said, and you'll chat more with Andrea, but that mindset of asking the reverse questions of like, you can't figure out your bad habits until you get to the root of them.
Yeah.
So thinking more so taking the time that you're thinking about the scale, maybe this week you start thinking a little more about where is this coming from? And like Andrea said, why did this start? And get in that mindset zone if it's really that important at the end of that conversation with yourself, right? And be like, where did that stem from? And then you can at least start to understand. And that might be like just to take a walk by yourself and kind of think about those things. And really, I jotted this stuff down for mindset because like Carol said, she was doing the mindset work every day and it's the easiest thing to get rid of. But you start bumping that up, we'll work on it because the more you practice that, I'm telling you, life-changing. Just good mindset stuff. So we'll work more on that. Debbie, I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that was great. Both you guys so far. That's been great.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for doing this. I'm excited.
Rosalie, do you have anything you want to share? And you don't have to at all.
Well, I could, but first of all, is there a way to change that T on my name to an R at some point? I don't know how
you have to do it, but you have to.
I can do that right now.
Okay. Good.
Or Avanti. Yes, thanks, Avanti.
But, well, on the weight issue has been my issue for truthfully 65 years. I have been on a diet of some sort, but this has really been a tough summer for me. A milestone birthday, aside from the fact that quite a few of my friends have passed away. And so I get into this mindset of who cares anymore? You know, why don't I just enjoy my life? And I swear, whatever goes in my mouth, and you can talk to Denise about this. Denise and I have this long-standing thing about weight and how I am a sugar addict. Like I cannot have a box of cookies in my house because I can't eat one or two. I have to eat the whole thing and then, okay, I'll never buy them again. But it has been a tough summer and we are going to Florida actually in a little less than a month. And I really need to get at least 5 pounds off. I mean, I don't feel good about my body. I don't feel good about myself. I do walk. I have shoulder issues and back issues, so I think it will help my back to lose the weight. I play golf, I play pickleball, and I walk. So I don't do weights because otherwise I'm telling you I'm going to have shoulder replacements. I don't want that. But that's why I'm here. I have tried every diet program in the world. I could run them all. And it's just, you know, every 10 years it creeps up a little. At one time I said, I'm never going to weigh more than 110, right? Then I'm never going to weigh more than 120, you know, and it's just, I'm probably at my top weight right now that I've ever been, and I'm shrinking. So it's not a good place in my life.
No, you're fine. Listen, you know what's funny is that you both, clearly this is a common thing, right? Because a couple of you mentioned the same overlapping things. So this is your moment to be like, I am normal, because we're talking about the same thing and having the same struggles. So there's no shame in how you're feeling in that. And Rosalie, I'd say, you know, talking about, like, I've tried all the diets and such. So I see a lot of people that I work with when it comes to that. The real root of that is really going to be habit changing, because it's really not the diet itself. It's going to be like, where do my habits lie? Like having the cookies in the house and knowing that you can't control those things. And we're going to provide you guys with tips along the way with that stuff, because usually it's just little tips and tricks that can start to get you in the right direction, that you're like, oh, I never thought of that. Or this might be helpful for me specifically, but it might not work for someone else. So we can give you guys a range of tips and, you know, habits, new healthy habits that you can start incorporating to get past those moments. But again, I feel like I get the idea that there is a lot of shame in feeling like the way we think about ourselves, right? Or the things or the habits we do. I mean, listen, we all have habits, we all have unhealthy ones, but it's just a matter of how you want to live at the end of the day. So I guess wrapping up the goal setting is really say, how do I want to live? Like Rosalie, you just mentioned too, a huge point on seeing friends pass away this year, or people that have let their health maybe get off track a little bit, or if you're getting older and you're feeling like you need a little more self-care for specific reasons. I mean, that is an amazing goal, because some people don't think like that. And then Rosalie, you said also on the other end, you're like, well, life is short, throw it up. Like, you know, it doesn't matter anymore. We're going to help you find a healthy balance with that, because I myself, it took a long time and lots of years to find that balance and really have a good relationship with yourself, with food, with fitness, with all those things. And I hope that over these 4 weeks, you guys can kind of come out smiling and feeling like, okay, I'm eating, I'm cooking, I'm doing the things, I'm moving, but I've got a balance where I'm feeling joy for life. So
Can I interject for one second too, Rosalie? One thing you may want to also do when you find yourself trying to reach for those cookies or something, not even to stop that behavior, but maybe observe if you can take a moment or two to jot down a few things about what you're feeling right before you start eating those cookies. Are you bored? Or are you sad about it? Are you thinking kind of a sad thought, like maybe you're thinking about a friend that did pass away, or your shoulder's hurting and you're like, you know what? I'm frustrated. This cookie's going to taste good. Maybe just observing kind of what your emotions are right beforehand. You may not be able to stop yourself from eating the cookies at this point. Hopefully we're going to work toward that, but maybe just getting that more. I think the overriding theme that I'm trying to kind of promote is observation of yourself, and really getting in that mindset where you're really thinking about your actions and why you're doing what you're doing, or why you're not doing what you're doing, things like that. And then one other thing I just wanted to point out, not that any of us are not going to, there's probably going to be days where we fall off or we maybe don't track our progress, or don't feel like we're going in a positive direction. Don't stop the process. Believe in the process. Don't get derailed and say, okay, we're not going to, even if you decide this group's not for you, but you still want to pursue your goals, don't just give up don't get so frustrated by maybe a lack of progress one day or a step backward, because again, back to my theme of it's a marathon, not a sprint. we're going to have some impediments along the way where maybe you have a super busy day and you didn't get to read those 10 pages that I mentioned in my example. Go start the next day, read those 10 pages, and you might find a day that you're reading 20 pages. So it's going to be it's not going to be necessarily a continual linear line, but we're going to hopefully, with the sensitive community runs to us, and just believe that, there might be some impediments along the way, but we're all heading to that positive direction and we have a plan of where we're going. So those would be the things that I would leave with. So
I totally agree with that. And I'll leave you with this kind of quote, which I always ask myself and say, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So mind blown, right? But nothing changes if nothing changes. So you have to do something different to get to that next level. And trusting the process, like Andrea said, that is the one thing I can tell you guys. When you've had that day, you didn't pull through, pick up where you left off and trust that process, because it's going to take time to fully see and feel results for whatever you're working on. Good things don't happen overnight. Okay. It takes that step by step, that day by day. But if you don't give up and you get past a point that you've never gotten to before, that feeling is like no other.
And you're still moving forward because you're still in a better mindset than you were before. So it's all in, in my opinion, life's about moving forward. And some days that's a half step, maybe that's a step backward, but you're still moving forward from where you were originally. So those are the overriding things that are really worked for me. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this.
Thank you.
First session, and please feel free, if you don't want to share here, if you have things that come to mind afterward, please feel free to reach out. I know I have some coaching calls with people that aren't necessarily on this call. So we look forward to the same time next week. And again, the recording is available.